Hi guys, it's Steph here and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the Beside My Bed video for 2019. For those of you who are new here, I film these videos every week and I look back at the previous week's worth of reading. This is the second year that I have been doing this series and I'm really excited to continue it into the new year. So this is my reading week from the 30th of December until the 5th of January 2019, so the very tail end of last year's reading, which I managed to squeeze in 2 books. Over the last 7 days I have read 7 books, 6 novels and 1 novella. I read a total of 2,466 pages and my 2019 reading count is at 5 books for the year. The 1st of January also heralded the start of Tome Infinity and Beyond, so basically this entire video except for the first 2 books are for the Tome Infinity and Beyond Readathon, and I will go through those challenges when I get to the books. But this week I also participated in the video challenge and I made my Mars settlement flag. I'm kind of happy with how it turned out. I still have not yet sourced a little dowel so that I can actually have it as a flag, but we'll get there. Okay, now on to the books. The first book I read in the last 7 days was Shield of Winter by Nalini Singh. This is book 13 in the Psy-Changeling series and it follows Vasek and Ivy. This was published in 2014 by Galance and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is the third last book in the first series of the Psy-Changeling books. The second series is the Psy-Changeling Trinity series and I've got 2 more books left to go in this one, obviously. Vasek is a character that we have read a few stories about where he's sort of just a minor character, and he is a Psy who is a telekinetic and a natural born teleporter, so it doesn't actually cost him anything of his abilities to teleport when and where he wants to at any given point. In this he is charged with helping to protect a group of Psy empaths who have been discovered, and it is believed that the empaths hold the key to saving the net, and as such a group of very powerful telekinetic arrows are assigned to keep watch over them, and that's where Vasek meets Ivy, who has been living in exile for most of her life and is really struggling with what it actually means to be an empath. I really liked this story. Vasek was very cute. There is a very hilarious scene, actually there's a couple of very hilarious scenes where he's talking about what it actually means to feel things and to be in a relationship with someone with other main characters we've read throughout the series, and I just found it so hilarious. This one does a lot more to start tying off threads of the overarching storyline where Psynet is basically at war with itself and there is a disease that is eating away at it. So it's, yes, it's the paranormal romance side of it, but it's also the urban fantasy sort of world building stuff that has really taken center stage over the last couple of the books. But I did really enjoy this one. Then I read Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This is a 2019 release from Simon & Schuster and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because it was a review copy, because I'm part of the blog tour that is happening throughout January and I'm going to have a standalone book review video going up soon. I'm actually going to film it today. This was the last book that I read in 2018 and I'm glad I did it. It's a very cute YA contemporary story about falling in love in the modern day age. It's a very fun book. I'm going to talk about it more in a couple of weeks. And now we come to the start of the Tome Infinity and Beyond Readathon challenges. The first book I read for the year and for the challenge was The Martian by Andy Weir. This is the second time that I have read this book and I really enjoyed it. This edition was published in 2014 by Crown and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I just find the story so hilarious. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is the story of Mark Watney, who finds himself stranded on Mars after a Mars mission goes horribly wrong. He has no communication with Earth. He has only the supplies that he has with him and he has to try and find a way to prolong his existence on the planet in the vain hope that he will be able to make contact with Earth and they'll be able to come and rescue him. You also get the perspective of a few of the other characters who were part of the Mars mission as well as the people who work for mission control back on Earth. There's a very interesting scientific element as well as the politics of what it means to travel in space and the logistics of actually rescuing someone from Mars. I was originally reading this for 2 challenges for Tome Infinity in the tier 1 bracket and they were air and water, but as I was reading it I actually managed to tick off a whole lot more challenges. So I'm actually going to tell you what they are. I'm going to have to use my computer because I've now created a spreadsheet to track everything because lots of books tick off multiple challenges and if I get lazy then I know what I've covered. Don't know if you can see, but this is my little tracker. I'll leave a link to it down below if you want to use it. So The Martian ticked off everything in tier 1, so air, water, fire, food, sleep and shelter. It ticked off medicine, education, oral communication and travel in tier 2. In tier 3 it ticked off government, higher education, technology and religion. In tier 3 it ticked off music and and Invention, and it didn't technically tick off anything in tier 5, but that's still a lot of things. Then I read Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second book in the Red Rising saga, and it was published in 2015 by Hodder and Stratton, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I have said before that I'd struggled a bit with Red Rising. I'm happy to say that I had less struggles getting into this than I did with Red Rising. However, I still feel like I'm missing something in the series. I know so many people who love it and it's not badly written, but I just feel like I don't get something in this story, and which is why I can't rate it higher. I constantly feel like I'm missing something. But it is the story of Darrow, who survived the events in Red Rising, where he basically had to rise above his colour red and become a member of the gold class, unbeknownst to the golds. And he's fought his way to the top. Now that he's there, he's had a few setbacks, and he decides to start a civil war, and it's brutal and bloody, and it's exactly the sort of thing I would love. And there were parts of it that I definitely did. I loved Severo, and I loved Victra, and I loved Mustang, but yeah, there's something that I just don't get. So I read this for the tier 1 challenge fire, because there was fire on the cover, but Golden Sun also ticked off the following categories. So in tier 1 it was fire, in tier 2 it was medicine, trading, procreation, and travel. In tier 3 it was urban settlements, class structures, government, and technology. In tier 4 it was acting, and in tier 5 I classified it more as science fantasy because it did read like a fantasy book to me. The third book that I read for the Tome Infinity Challenge was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, book 1 in the Wayfarer series. This is a second reread for me as well. This was also published in 2015 by Hodder and Stratton, and I adore this book. This is like the cinnamon roll book of my bookshelves. It is the most comforting read ever. For those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know what this book is about, it is about a crew aboard a ship called the Wayfarer, and they are a mixed, motley bag of a crew. There are humans, there are aliens, and they work on a ship that punches holes through space in order to create travel lanes for people. While there is a plot to the story itself is sort of this meandering journey through space as the crew of the Wayfarer travel very long distances to get to a job that they have taken on. And as such, we spend a lot of time developing the characters and the relationships, and it is really a character-driven story. I love every single character in this book, from Rosemary, who is the new recruit, to the Captain Ashby, Sissix, Dr. Chef, Jenks, Kizzy, Lovey, all of them, even Corbin, who you really want to smack at sometimes, and Ohan. Oh, I love all the characters in this series. It is well worth reading. Set aside some time to actually dedicate to unpacking it. I went nuts with tabbing it. I did actually tab it up the first time, but I only used one colour, so now I have gone through and I'm in love with this book series. So I was originally reading The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet for food and shelter, but this one also ticked off in tier 1, air, water, food, sleep, shelter. Thankfully there were no fires in space. In tier 2 it also ticked off trading and oral communication and travel. In tier 3 it also ticked off urban settlements and religion, and it also ticked off dancing in tier 4. Then I read Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a novella that was published by Tor in 2015, and it follows the story of Binti, who is a teenage girl who lives in a small community on Earth, and this community is very close-knit and they like to stay together, and they really believe in the Earth and treating nature with respect. Binti has been accepted into a very prestigious university on another planet, and no one from her culture has ever been accepted into this university, so she's the very first one. And this university very rarely accepts humans as well. There's a very small human population there because it is on an alien planet. She decides to sneak away one morning, leaving her family behind to travel to this university, and while she is on her way, some really scary things begin to happen. And this story was action-packed and fast-paced. I did feel that there was part of it that I didn't get towards the end, and I've got to go back and reread it. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars because I really appreciated the writing style. I thought it was very unique, and I'm looking forward to checking out the next 2 books in the novella series. I was actually reading this for Tier 2's Education Challenge, but it also ticked off the following categories. In Tier 1, it ticked off food and shelter. In tier 2, education, oral communication and travel. In tier 3, higher education. And I think that's where I got with that one. And then finally, I read Planetfall by Emma Newman. This was published in 2015 by Galance, and it is book 1 in the Planetfall series. Although I don't think the books themselves are subsequent novels. I think they're more companion books. I actually listened to this on audio, and the audio is narrated by Emma Newman, which is fantastic. She has a very, very soothing voice. I highly recommend listening to the audio for this one. And this story takes place on an alien planet where a group of about 1,000 humans have a small colony, and they were drawn to this planet by the vision of one of the founders of the mission, who believed that it is the home place of God, and if they traveled there, they would find God. This story is told from the perspective of Renata, who is the main character, and she's the engineer of this colony, and she spends a lot of time fixing all of the technology things that go wrong. But this is a colony that is built on lies, and something very tragic happened during Planetfall, which is when everyone came down to the planet to begin the colonization process. And ever since then, something has been not quite right with Renata. And it's not until the grandson of the woman who had the vision of this planet finds their community and that things really start to get shaken up. And suddenly we are learning that Renata is dealing with a mental illness, and we know that there is something terrible that has happened, but we don't know exactly what and how things came about until the very end. It is a haunting story, and there are times when you question Renata's logic and you question why anyone would think this would be a good idea, but it was just so well done. I read Planetfall for the Tier 2 challenges, Procreation and Oral Communication. I should say that this does have some trigger warnings for the death of a child, but that's in the past, as well as the death of a lover. And there are some mental health issues in here, but I don't really want to say what it is because I think that it's a bit of a spoiler. So if you would like to know, feel free to message me. So even though I had it down for 2 of the challenges, it also completed the Tier 1 challenges, Air, Fire, Food, Sleep and Shelter, Tier 2, Medicine, Education, Procreation, Oral Communication, Tier 3, Urban Settlements, Government, Technology and Religion. I could probably have also ticked off dance because they have quite a few dances in this colony. Pretty sure they mentioned it a few times. So these are all the books that I have read in the last 7 days. I'm pretty pleased with myself. In the comments, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning to. I would love to hear your thoughts on them. If you're participating in Tome Infinity, let me know how you've done with your reading this week. I'd love to know what you are reading for the readathon. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.